Jesse Bailey Waters. He gets up in the morning. He goes out and he gets into a nondescript black SUV with a driver. Once that SUV arrives at Fox News Studio, it does not drop him off in the front. They go down into an underground garage. He gets out. He gets into a private elevator and it takes him upstairs. And it is here that a team applies makeup to him, tries to get rid of his puffiness, puts a little blush on his cheeks. They make his hair picture perfect. Interns looking for a quick promotion, a quick way to the top, try to grab his attention because they know he left his wife for an intern. Like so many in his party, he likes them young. The makeup lady tries all her tricks to remove the puffiness from all the drinking. They've started him on Ozempic. They have to keep him camera ready because he is a mouthpiece. A mouthpiece for the party that has been crying about the First and Second Amendment since I've been born. The Second Amendment is there to keep the First Amendment. He has to walk out on this stage now. This man who's in full makeup but unoffensive to them because he is not reading stories to children. This man right here who would be disgusted by the very people that are out there watching him if he had to eat in their diners, if he had to drink in their bars, if he had to hit on their daughters. It's why he takes an elevator from the garage. He doesn't want to see you. You disgust him. He never wants to meet you.
Brave. You don't deserve to be able to say that and then have no penalty. There will be costs. There'll be social costs, financial costs. We will shame, excommunicate them, banish them. And that is a promise. And until then, game on.
Until then, game on. The irony will always be lost on his audience because let's be honest, people don't tune in to watch makeup covered face Jesse Waters to turn their brain on. Quite the opposite. They tune into this to turn their brain off, to feed their id, to feed their pure, raw reptilian brain. Emotion, rage. The man on the TV is angry and now I'm angry. It doesn't matter that the man wearing makeup also telling me fairy tales, something I'm very much against. Men in makeup. Storytime hour. It's lost on these people that he is saying, Jesse Waters is clearly starts that sentence by saying sometimes words have consequences. Life and death consequences. It doesn't matter what he's talking about. This man who rides the elevator, is he wants you to help him destroy people's lives. Maybe people like me. People's lives that he specifically doesn't agree with. He doesn't want people out there that don't agree that we should be an authoritarian kleptocracy that uses modern day fascism to bring a populace into a rage, to stir them. Now, there's another man at this news agency. He's not as well put together as Jesse Bailey Waters. He doesn't need as much makeup because he's got a dumb face, and there's only so much you can do with it. And in many ways, if he didn't need to be on TV so desperately, the very fact that they've made him the clown of the show, the comedian of the show, purely on his looks, voice, face, and I mean, if you've ever seen him try to tell a joke, he's not exactly delivering Carlin deepness here. But Gutfeld also arrives in a black SUV that goes underground. He also comes up in that private elevator just for him. And the interns around him force out their fake laughs. They've perfected their fake laughs to sound real when he tries to test out some of his material on them.
That's a good one.
Yeah, a really good one.
Because just like Jesse's interns, there's only certain ways up you can make it in Fox if you're a woman. Just ask Megyn Kelly.
It wasn't school indoctrination. Carrie Lake went off on that. He was in an online apprenticeship program at Dixie Technical College, which I don't think was changed.
I would just note the family
but
said
they
he
didn't say
changed.
when he changed.
Yeah.
I'm just saying we need more information before you
Charlie
smear.
Kirk at a dinner.
Before you
we don't need more information.
Here comes
Really?
the clown.
Yes, we don't need it. What is interesting here is why is only this happening on the left and not the right? That's all we need to know.
What about
There's absolutely no cognitive...
What about Melissa Hortman that we just
okay, you want to talk
about?
Melissa Hortman?
Please.
Did you know her name before it happened? None of us did. None of us were spending every single day talking about Mrs. Hortman. I never heard of her until after she died.
She doesn't matter?
Don't play that bullshit with me. You know what I'm saying is there was no demonization amplification about that woman before she died. It was a specific crime against her by somebody who knew her. The same. Now you could bring up Josh Shapiro, but then you will not bring up, for example, that was a pro-Palestine person.
Attention.
So don't use your. What about this? The fact of the matter is the both sides argument not only doesn't fly, we don't care. We don't care about your both sides argument. That shit is dead. For one,
The funny man, he's on there because he's funny. And because the clown has no self-control, what Gutfeld does is give you the game. Jesse put together tells you he wants to take away the First Amendment for only the people on the left. He wants to get rid of me being able to talk to you. He wants to dox people. He wants to shame people. But the man who's supposed to be their clown, prematurely ejaculates. He comes on the thigh of the Fox News viewer, right? He spills the beans. He says nobody knows about those Democrats. Nobody knows. Assassinated 2 months ago. We talked about it. We knew. We sure thought it was a big deal. Greg Gutfeld tells you nobody ever heard of him. Nobody on that ride that he takes in that black SUV to his job that brings him in, goes down into the garage. Nobody knows. Rides that elevator up, that private elevator all by himself. The guys who are on TV, this is them. This is who you're listening to. They say nobody's ever heard of these people. We don't know what you're talking about. This is a one-side issue. Greg Gutfeld is a clown, an unfunny clown. And so all he can yell out now, all they can yell out is only Charlie matters. Only Charlie. Following Jesse's completely self-unaware declaration that words have consequences. Does nobody use their brains anymore? Greg Gutfeld comes out. Remember when they were like, black lives just don't matter? All lives matter. That was their saying they put on their shirts. They wrote it on their Facebook, all lives matter. Now what Greg Gutfeld is telling you is that Democrat lives don't matter. And as you start to put this all together, you understand that these are no longer monologues. That's not even a fit by Greg Gutfeld. That's not even a out-of-touch take by Jesse Waters. What they are is they are the chorus.
That's a violent radical left group. Okay, go ahead.
I got peppered with a lot of comments for doing that. They still have their First Amendment right, though. They're still out there protesting.
well, I'm not
You've got an amazing team behind you.
Did you hear that mumble from him? Here, let's play it again.
You've got an amazing team behind you.
Yeah, I'm not so sure. That's what he says under his breath. They still have their First Amendment rights. I'm not sure about that. This is a Republican Party. This is Jesse Waters. We're going to make them ashamed to talk out about authoritarianism. This is Greg Gutfeld. None of that matters anymore. We're not both sidesing it. Gutfeld says only my side matters, and the President of the United States says we're not going to have our First Amendment rights anymore.
Have you called the governor yet or been able to speak to any of them?
I don't really call him. Look, he appointed this guy to a position. I think the governor of Minnesota is so whacked out. I'm not calling him. He's a mess. So, I could be nice and call him, but why waste time?
Greg Gutfeld says no one even knew about that. They sure asked the president about it, and it sure sounds like he knew about it. And what was his response? Why waste the time?
Do you think it would have been fitting to lower the flags to have staff when Melissa Hortman, the Minnesota House Speaker, was gunned down by an assassin as well?
I'm not familiar.
The Minnesota House Speaker, a Democrat, who was assassinated this summer
Well, if the governor had asked me to do that, I would have done that. But the governor of Minnesota didn't ask me.
Stories change, right?
I wouldn't have thought of that, but I would have if somebody had asked me. People make requests for the lowering of flag, and oftentimes you have to say no because it would be a lot of lowering. The flag would never be up. Had the governor of Minnesota asked me to do that, I would have done that gladly.
And given the killing of...
I'll tell you one flag that should never be lowered. Actually, I won't tell you. And to think of fascism in the same way as it was in the 1930s, to think it would be implemented the same way. It's why these people who have trouble wiping their own butts struggle to understand what fascism really is. One of the things that stays the same, one of the constants, one of the tenets is that the fascist has to be the aggressor and the victim at the same time. It's why the Republicans were so ripe to take over. All the way from the evangelicals to the chuds to the militias, all of them have a persecution complex. It was so easy to feed this to them. But here's my point. We take things that are happening in different spaces of the Republican Party, but when you start putting them together, you could do this any day. Tomorrow, you can start putting it together all again from all the different spaces. It becomes a chorus. And Gutfeld's outburst is so revealing because he's a clown, right? But even the clown understands the vibe. And it explains why he's so flustered. Because he knows what he's supposed to say. He knows what his role is. He knows where it's heading, but he's just not talented enough to go out there without looking completely ridiculous.
Given with all the that's going on with Charlie Kirk's assassination and the left-wing, a lot of left-wing violence going on, do you have plans, and actually this is a great opportunity with all these, do you plan on designating Antifa family a domestic terror organization?
Well, it's something I would do, yeah. If I have support from the people back here, I think we'd start with Pam, I think. But I would, if you give me, I would do that 100%. And others also, by the way. But Antifa is terrible.
Are there other groups that you can think of?
There are other groups, yeah. There are other groups. We have some pretty radical groups, and they got away with murder. And
they
also,
got away with it?
I've been speaking to the Attorney General about bringing RICO against some of the people that you've been reading about that have been putting up millions and millions of dollars for agitation. These aren't protests. These are crimes, what they're doing, where they're throwing bricks at cars of ICE and Border Patrol. And they come in with a beautiful new car. They're so proud. It's Border Patrol, ICE, it's got whatever it is. And they're throwing rocks at it.
Right.
And after 50 yards, it looks like an old beat-up vehicle. It was just brand new. It was just bought for the purposes. And they don't have to take that anymore. I let it be known. We'll take responsibility. They don't have to take it anymore.
His only frame of reference, the only thing he cares about in these horrific things that ICE is pulling off with their masks on. I've never known anyone who wears a mask to their job that's proud of what they do, and he's worried about the car. Says he wants to go after Antifa. Who is Antifa? I've never been to an Antifa meeting, but I'll tell you what, I am anti-fascist. So now he's going to make them a terrorist group. The Proud Boys, they're not a terrorist group. The Oath Keepers, they're not a terrorist group. They were all pardoned. You know? They all pay dues. They all go to meetings. They all do their little drills, right? With their masks on and everything. They go out in the hills and do drills. I've never been to a Antifa meeting. I've never paid Antifa dues. We should come back to that for a second, because the Oath Keepers, the Proud Boys, everybody on January 6th, that was the original sin. If he's worried about lawlessness, if Greg Gutfeld's worried about lawlessness, releasing 2,000 people, pardoning 2,000 people directly down political lines who tried to overthrow the democratic process. That was the original sin. You can't have a sense of law and order when you let some people get away without consequences and others have consequences, right? By definition, that is the antithesis of justice, blind justice. So what happens when you start taking consequences away from one group of people? Well, a group of people starts taking justice into their own hands.
I'm feeling right now, and this is something people say, I mean, you kind of know the answer, there's incredible sadness, but there's incredible anger. And the thing about anger is that unfocused anger or blind rage is not a productive emotion.
Right.
But focused anger, righteous anger, directed for a just cause, is one of the most important agents of change in human history.
Tarlov showed that. Amen.
And we are going to channel all of the anger that we have over the organized campaign that led to this assassination to uproot and dismantle these terrorist networks. So let me explain a little bit what that means. So
please.
We've got 30 seconds, so be quick, Stephen.
That's what his wife says.
The organized
all the
doxing
time to him.
campaigns, the organized riots, the organized street violence, the organized campaigns of dehumanization, vilification, posting people's addresses, combining that with messaging that's designed to trigger and incite violence, and the actual organized cells that carry out and facilitate the violence. It is a vast domestic terror movement. And with God as my witness, we are going to use every resource we have at the Department of Justice, Homeland Security, and throughout this government to identify, disrupt, dismantle, and destroy these networks and make America safe again for the American people. It will happen, and we will do it in Charlie's name.
Thank you, Stephen. Don't go away. I'll be joined by a guest of friends just in a few seconds.
JD. This is a fantasy world. J.D. Vance's predecessor, the VP last time that was him, was actually targeted by a group of violent individuals who planned and were part of cells that make that up. And now he sits across from Stephen Miller with a straight face. Says, say it in 30 seconds, Stephen Miller. Say it in 30 seconds because, I want to keep I don't want them coming after me. They're taking a kid who grew up in a Republican family in Utah, who was groomed into gun culture when he was still in the cradle, who had politics injected into his life from an early age, who was brought into a cult of personality. And they're trying to force that as some master plan with cells set up. Secret cells. George Soros was funding this kid in Utah who grew up with a Republican family. And maybe he did get caught up online. But you have to understand that family was already creating him to be that. What side he went after was just who, got to him last. You can't raise kids this way, where politics is their whole life, backed up by gun culture. It's not some grand conspiracy by George Soros and Antifa. It's common sense. And Stephen Miller has decided he could use that anger. Stephen Miller felt this anger long before this. Stephen Miller was an angry, angry child. You could go back and look at the videos of how he talked in high school. This anger isn't new that he's saying, I finally have righteous anger. He's always had this anger. This is just an opportune time for him to weaponize it. And around here is where it gets personal for me. I grew up helping my grandpa run for state senator. He was an old school, cold town Democrat who spent 40 years fighting Republicans on policy. My grandpa fought for unions. He fought for infrastructure in that very state of Utah where that kid grew up as a Democrat, right? Gutfeld comes out and he says state legislature lives don't matter. And there's no way on this planet for someone like me who grew up that way to see the change it enacted, to see the coal miners' lives who got better directly related to my grandfather, for me to not take something like that personal. And therein lies a fault line, We were fighting a political party. We were going up against issues. This right here, this chorus that's building towards a finale of what they all want to see. One of the other tenets of fascism that's unchanging is the identification of enemies. They find scapegoats to unify their cause. This was the immigrants that they came up with that got everybody so mad. The people that picked their very food, that's who they got mad at, disgust. It started as immigrants, right? But you see how seamlessly they're moving it right into just all Democrats, right? The faceless Antifa. It's so seamless. Because after all, this is a party that came up with a fake syndrome. They said you have Trump derangement syndrome, right? If you said anything bad about him in the first term. But this second term, his second term, I wouldn't be surprised if they brought back political sanitariums to start putting people in them, diagnosing them unironically with Trump derangement syndrome. Because these people have been conditioned. We're 10 years into this. Nobody's breaking that cycle in their brain. And I just want you guys to realize that something dark is happening. And it's not happening in silos in different parts of the Republican Party. There is no good part of the Republican Party left. I'm sorry to tell you that if you just woke up from a 20-year coma. It's rotten from the center. And the chorus, this chorus of all of them goes all the way up to that president who wears more makeup than all of them. It's not just background noise anymore. You know, it's not monologues here and there. It's a song. And it's getting louder because they think nobody is listening. And the question is, are you listening? The Chud Report.
That shit is dead.